Before I recorded this episode with Eric, I was speaking to a friend of mine. His name is Barry. He runs a business called Secular. You should check them out. And he said immigrant founders don't have FFF. If you don't know what FFF means, FFF means friends, family, and fools. So basically, when you're starting a business, the first people that give you money are your friends, your family, or fools. I don't know. I'm not sure they meant the fools in a negative way, but and these people still build some of the biggest businesses in the world. That's amazing. To be honest. And so part of my conversation with Eric was just kind of trying to understand, the immigrant startup landscape in Canada and how he's helping build a bridge for immigrant founders. Let's get to it. Okay. First of all, thank you for coming on this, Eric. I know we've tried to do this for a while, but they say the best time is now. And so the best time is now. And so, I know you run a VC, a technological VC that's focused on immigrant founders. And so I feel like that's what we'll talk about today. We might talk about your immigrant background, or I think that'll somehow find its way into the conversation. And so I'm just going to start off with a bit about the immigrant startup landscape, just trying to understand, because I have a story. Someone said to me, immigrant founders don't have FFFs, they don't have friends, family, and fools. And it really hit me in the feels, because I was like, yeah, that I never thought of it that way, but that is a problem, that you have to kind of start a business and start trying to raise Series A or something like that, instead of having people that can test your hypotheses and all that sort of things. And so just trying to understand what you're seeing with funding challenges and all that stuff.
Well, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I've been really looking forward to this opportunity, and congratulations on this incredible, initiative that you're leading and giving voices to all these incredible immigrant stories that people you've talked to in the past. Happy to share what we've seen in the market, and perhaps a little bit about what really motivated us to go on this path to start Maple Bridge. So a little bit about the landscape. Immigration and immigrants have always been critical to Canada. It has been part of Canada's fabric from the early beginnings. And so when we look at, our historical path as a country, where we came from, where we are right now, and given, Canada's, decline birth rate, population, and looking at where are the opportunities to really grow our economy, not just for the year and, ahead, but thinking about the next decade and beyond. What are some of the things Canada needs to do to make sure that we remain competitive globally, that we take advantage of all the talent that are around the world, that Canada continues to attract them to Canada? Immigration and immigrants are central to that equation. So, Canada continues to be a very attractive place for many people around the world wanting to move from their home country to somewhere else. And so for us, we looked at, okay, there are thousands of people that are pursuing that Canadian dream every year. And through my previous work and, my partner's previous work, we also got to see firsthand just how challenging it can really be for someone when you don't really have the established network or the full understanding of what it takes to build your business from ground up. And so we really explored how could we leverage what we've learned personally, through our own personal experiences, the people we've worked with, over 500, companies that we've worked with over the years. How can we leverage all of those tools, all of those understanding, and the network we've built coast to coast in Canada to really help some of these people who've been, who are currently in shoes that we've been in the past, to really help accelerate their ability to build businesses from ground up, to really take advantage of, all the gifts that they bring to Canada. And so I think we were amazed, one, by the number of newcomers coming to Canada and wanting to build from day one. I get inspired when I meet a newcomer who've been to Canada for 6 months, and they just filled with so much hope and conviction that, hey, I'm not just here to take up a job in this new
Mm.
country I call home, but I have the ability and I've got the proven concept back in my home country, education from a world-class university to really build something right away. I do not need to wait 10 years to pursue those aspirations. So for us at Maple Bridge, that was really the genesis of what our inspiration came from. It's like there are so many hungry and well skilled to really do it. There are gaps when it comes to how to really actualize those
Mm.
aspirations and dreams. And we do have the tools, we do have the people in our network to make that happen. So, at the core of it, we really are a bridge. That's why it is clearly in our name. We aim to bridge gaps, and we really are passionate about seeing the actualization of talent and actualization of dreams, and that pursuit of Canadian, dream come true for people who are now new to, Canada and calling Canada their home.
You know, that part you say about people who just come and want to build, first of all, I'm thinking two things. The first thing, wait, it's insane that you leave your home country. It's insane. You leave every single thing you know and you come. And then despite all that madness and uncertainty and just trying to understand what's going on, the person says, I want to build. Like, that's the bravest. Those are the bravest humans on earth. That's how I feel, to be honest. Because
I call them crazy too, but it's the good kind of crazy.
Yeah. Like, how do you do that?
And you know what? Those skill sets are like the core elements of a true entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So the ability to leave the known in pursuit of that undefined, not guaranteed future, but it has that prospect of something greater than what you currently have. That is the whole path of entrepreneurship. So
Yeah.
when one has been able to demonstrate that with their own life, I mean, you are looking at that classic example of an entrepreneur, the ability to just hustle and, face uncertainty and just go all in. And that is why we are really excited to be working with immigrant entrepreneurs.
This thing you say just brings to mind, and maybe someone else has made this connection, but for me, it just happened now. That there's a reason why a lot of immigrants become entrepreneurs, and a lot of the biggest businesses, let's use the US for example, because that's where you have a lot of the success stories. A lot of the biggest businesses were founded by people who moved, literally people who worked in their founding teams were immigrants because literally, like, you're right, like, just if you're able to do that with your life itself, then a business is like, oh no, like that's nothing. Like, that's a business.
Yeah.
You literally restarted your life and moved to a new country. So why can't you do with the business?
And sorry, you complete that.
No, like, I was just saying, I think like that's for me, it's everything, But yeah, you're trying to say something, yeah.
That is a very, very good example, and that analogy, because we come across many people who have faced challenges in their, moving to Canada, integrating to Canada, but they take advantage of those challenges and make something great out of it. And the US example that you brought in, there's this well-known statistics out there that of all the unicorns that have been created in the United States, over 55% of them have been founded by immigrant founders, because there's that inherent belief and hunger, when they get to a new place, to really not build for themselves, build for their family, build for their kids, and really build for that next generation there.
Yeah.
And that is a common thread I see through even engaging with Canadian immigrant, founders. Another interesting Canadian stats that I really get excited about, if you look at all early stage entrepreneurship in Canada, even though first generation immigrants account for roughly about 23% or so, but about 30, almost 35% of all early stage entrepreneurship in Canada across all sectors are by immigrant entrepreneurs. And so Partly it could be that people are hungry and they do want to really build, but partly, sadly, it's also part of the system. It's, it's not by a matter of choice, because moving to a new country, in as much as it's really exhilarating, exciting, and all of that, it can be extremely hard for
Hmm.
many. And you and I have seen, whether through our own lives or through people close to us, when you don't understand the system, you really don't know how to put your best foot forward. You
Hmm.
don't know how to really, tell your international experience, how to, position your narrative in a way that
Yeah.
your foreign experience and credential will be valued the same way in this new country. Sometimes you're left with no choice but to build for yourself. If
Yeah.
I heard this analogy that I really like. It comes to mind often. When you are begging for a seat at a table for so long, it comes to a point where you actually have to say, you know what, screw that. I'm going to go out there and build my own
Own
table
table.
and
Yes.
invite other people to come and sit with me. And that, I think, sometimes that is really the story of immigrant entrepreneurship. When you're just knocking on all these doors, sometimes looking for jobs that are way underneath your
Hmm.
credential, you're like, what? You know what? I'm going to take a pause and actually leverage the tools that I have. And that's what Maple Bridge really fits in. When we see those individuals, they fit our investment thesis. We'll come and have a seat with you. If there is anything that we can help those individuals really build from ground up, when no one or very little people or a few people are giving them the attention, we are happy to take the first bet on those individuals really doing something great.
Hmm. That analogy is it is something too. It's the kind of thing you don't forget once you hear it.
Yeah.
And it makes absolute sense because at some point, I mean, I have a couple of older friends who they're struggling to settle in, and you see that with them. And like one of them started saying, yeah, Josie, like I think I just want to just go register a business and try and see what I can do. And like
Yeah.
that, and that's it. Like they've started that step towards trying like what can I do with myself? Because he's been a lawyer in Nigeria for like 19 years and he moves
Okay.
here. And then, like you're 19 years serving in Nigeria and then you come here, you're like, wait, where do I start from? I'm going to start writing all the exams. And
It is hard.
damn. But let's stay on this. I have two questions I want to ask you. I'm going to ask you first. I want to ask about your investment thesis since you talked about it. But I'll come back to that. But I want to just since we talked about immigrant entrepreneurs, like what are the things you think you see them get wrong, struggle with that kind of trips them up a lot more than it should? You know how when you're kind of getting in your way, that sort of thing. Are there like any recurring themes that they struggle with, or is it just is one of every now and then? Is
Yeah.
there anything like that?
So maybe a little bit of our own investment thesis.
Yeah.
You've gotten the background as to why we're doing this. We really want to bridge Canada's innovation gap. It will surprise many people. Canada as a country, we actually don't rank that well among our peers when it comes to innovation. There's a huge gap. I think recently we were ranked, it was a C. I mean, if I got grade C in university,
In
my
school,
my
yeah.
family, my parents would not have been happy. So as a country, we can be happy if we are scoring C on innovation. So there is a gap, and we think the type of immigrants Canada is attracting these days, particularly through the international student stream. People coming in often with first or two degrees from world-class education universities from all around the world, with talent that Canada really needs to be able to close that innovation gap. So our thesis is to let's harness some of these talents, some of these proven resiliency, give them the access to capital, which often is very hard for many of them to access to established network in the right room where they can get to tell what value they bring into the table, what global innovation they bring into Canada. And by so doing, we fundamentally believe Canada will be in a better place, innovation wise, economic wise, and just broadly as a country, we'll do better that if we are fully utilizing the talent of our new Canadian family members coming in to the best of their potential, where they
Yeah.
come to Canada and they fully utilize all of it. So that is really our investment thesis. We invest in digital solutions out of our fund one. That is the main focus. So digital solutions primarily focused on health tech, sustainable technology, and enterprise software. Those being the three core, industries that we think, or verticals that we believe has keys to really unlock that next wave of global innovation in Canada.
Yeah. Just curious, like, so you still want to talk about the part about, like, are there mistakes you think that these guys or these ladies guys make, or because I really want to, like, I feel like it's more like I'm trying to understand if there are things, recurring themes, because as an immigrant, you're in a new system, you're trying to settle in, you want to run a startup,
Yeah,
but then, like, where do you start from? Some
that
people just start and go on, and
it is. I would say the beginning is definitely the hardest. Deciding and choosing what path to take, choosing between pursuing something that is so great and has that great potential and really fulfilling your ability to pay bills and all of that. And you see many that don't have the choice. They have to do things to pay the bills, and those aspirations and dreams are left behind. But in terms of the common, themes we see, challenges that people face, one, I think is very, very clear. Many immigrants really underestimate their own value. I've come across many really brilliant immigrant general and immigrant entrepreneurs who have so much to offer, but maybe because of what someone may have told them in the past that you overqualified for this job, they really dim their own light. And so when you're out there in this really competitive space, especially when it comes to technology, early stage startup, fundraising, is extremely competitive. And if you don't feel so confident in your ability to put the spotlight on the best part of your story, and I see that in many immigrant founders that we encounter. Unfortunately, that really goes against them. You really need
yeah,
to fully own everything that you've done, everything that has been part of your journey to that stage, and that has to be brought forward. You do not have to shy away from all the educational credentials you might have from your home country. Maybe Canada don't really view those universities, or
yeah,
people don't even know the names, but you have those skill set. You've got those knowledge. So you really need to bring it to the forefront of your story. I mean, fundraising in at the early stage in technology, it is partly about that narrative. It's really
yeah,
partly about that storytelling. You need to be able to articulate to investors how that vision is going to really come to fruition. Because often at the early stage, you don't have anything in hand to showcase. It's really
mhm,
about a dream. You may have some proven drivers to showcase as like this is a market that has, proven track record that will work. There are some indicators to back it up, all of that. But there's a big part that you have to be able to really bring all of it together, including your own element, and tell that story. And often I see, immigrant founders shying away from really, putting themselves out there just because of what they may have encountered in the past. So that would be one. The other piece that I think I find is you really need to find the right community. You know, it is difficult. It is really, really difficult. But I think, I come from a place where this saying is really overused to some extent. It really takes a village, and it really,
yeah,
really does, more so than anywhere else, I think, in Canada, to build a business from ground up. So you really need to find the right community. You really need to find your tribe right early on, and not your community in the sense of just other immigrant community members, but you are part of that greater Canadian community. Find people who will
yeah,
give you access to rooms that eventually you want to be in. So socializing and you really building your knowledge on how do I do this in this new place? How do I navigate, the complexity of early startup in Canada, which, I've been here for quite a long time. And trust me, there are days I come across things I'm like, holy macro, this boggles my mind. So you can only imagine someone who's
For a
been
new
here.
person.
Exactly. So it is complex, but it's not impossible. There are a ton of opportunities certainly all around, but you really need to align and associate with the right community people. But I think Canada has a growing, pockets of, these groups throughout the country, which really for
Yeah.
me is, it's encouraging. You wouldn't necessarily find any province or any region in Canada that is not striving to really bring immigrants and newcomers, refugees together to really amplify their voices, amplify the need for unique, specialized solutions for them.
Yeah. Gosh. That point you make about dimming our lights by ourselves, like I feel like someone could make a lot of money from creating a almost like a GNC, guidance and counseling shop for immigrants, because it feels like there's trauma from what has happened to some people before, and then they pass it on to those who are coming. And for those who are not mentally strong enough, which a lot of people are not, because you're literally you're being battered from all sides by bills, the nuances of the culture, code switching, try to job hunt. Like everything is coming at you at once. So it's so easy to just be like, oh yeah. And like I was speaking to Ayo Wood, and he's the counselor in Kitchener. I interviewed him in early January. And he said something that I found. He said, we say to ourselves, oh, it's not going to happen. And then it doesn't happen. We're like, oh yeah, I knew it wasn't going to happen. But yeah, you already set yourself for failure, because literally in your head, you're like, oh yeah. So because you approach life that way, you don't put the work in. And I totally understand, like it's so true. But I also know that part of that is also just coming from all the things that is happening to you. And so somehow, like you're so right, like you need to own your space,
Yeah.
like own who you are. Like it is who you are. Like I used to tell my wife that when she was interviewing, I said to her that I've learned just from my experience, it takes you 3 months to get a job. I said that, why I think it takes you 3 months to get a job? Because it takes you like 2 months to own your narrative. So when you start job hunting, the first month, especially as an immigrant, you're not sure. You're talking, and then you're as you talk, as you go along the way, you start to see what lights people up. I told her it happens from people subconsciously, but if you learn to bring that thing to the conscious
Yeah.
and start to watch out for it, like you will. So I told her one day, I said, when I listen to your interviews, I told her you're going to get an offer soon, because I can already see that you're now talking with confidence. You've owned your story, and this is who I am. And she got 3 offers, and she was like, how did you know? I'm like, because like you need to own your story, and it takes some time, but you have to consciously say to yourself, this is who I am, and you're just gonna do it, and you'll do it, and you find your way. But yeah, immigrants, we need to learn to own our story.
And you know what? When that happened, you really remember exactly when that moment happened, where everything just aligns and there's this peace, peace about who you are and your
Yeah.
ability. And, did happen to me when I was thinking about doing Maple Bridge. I was fortunate. I had a long time to really validate the business idea on if I am the right person to do it. Do I have what it takes to really pursue it? And trust me, there were a lot of people that said, no, you can't do it. And it wouldn't work. There is no market for anything like this. And you're going to have people who are going to just slam the door in your face so many times. And yes, it can be so hard to pick yourself up especially when you don't have that established family that you may have had in your home country to rely on to pick you up, so you're dealing with twice as much to really elevate yourself up from, a knockdown. And then you have responsibilities and you may have a family that you're trying to hold it all together for them.
Yeah.
So it is like layers of all these challenges. But that moment where it really becomes, you know what? I am who I am, and every step of my journey to this date has made me a better person, a better business
Yeah.
person, a better advisor, a better employee. When you own all of that, it is really so like I can remember vividly where my really turned, and you become really comfortable. And trust me, there will be people that you encounter in your life, they will appreciate every, word of that story that you bring to the table because there's a value in it. The ability
Yeah.
to really have a broad international might be, not necessarily relatable to them. But every step, I'm a firm believer that, life is full of stories and they all really enrich us. So you got to own it and you got to really, be proud of it. And if someone is not knocking you down multiple times, perhaps move on to the next person or move on to the next
Yeah.
opportunity.
Yeah. Now that you mentioned aligning, I want to ask you, tell me a bit about how you got here. Because I think you moved here as a student, right?
I did. I moved
So how
to
did you go from student to employee to investor? Like,
I recently was talking to a group of students, and they'd asked me about, my path to venture capital. And the core of my message was, my path is not traditional, and that is okay. In life, I believe often the ones that really do well don't necessarily take the, traditional beating path. I'm a firm believer that sometimes you just have to chart your own course, and by doing
mm,
so with the right mentality, hard work, deep conviction, and support of a community, you really can make it. So I came to Canada permanently as an international student, but international business has always been something that I was very passionate about. On how do you look at a business opportunity, not just as to how to do it from one country, but how do you connect the skill set, the tools, the human resources of, because the world is really connected in so many ways.
yeah.
So to address one local problem, I've always been fascinated about how do we connect it to someone in, when I was originally born and raised in Ghana. So always kind of, interested in how can you address a local Ghanaian problem, leveraging technology,
Mm,
human resources, talent from all parts of the world. And so that kind of, really started my interest in international business. I was very fortunate to have received a scholarship when I finished my college degree diploma at Algonquin College to work for Expo Development Canada, EDC, which is, a crown corporation charged with really taking and helping Canadian businesses to take on the world by de-risking how hard it can be for many to pursue opportunities around the world. And I spent almost 10 years there. And through that work, it was fascinating work. I got to see all kinds of business be so bold and daring to, go to markets that many of them wouldn't have never dreamt of going, but with the support of EDC, it really made it possible for small mom and dad shop, out of
mm,
small communities in Canada to be selling to on the world stage, to countries like Nigeria, Ghana, Pakistan, like all over the world. And that job was really fulfilling. But through all of that too, I got to work with some of Canada's leading innovation centers. So really saw, the power of innovation and the power of startups really on defining the future of Canada, and how there is a growing, interest in parties to kind of bring all of us together to make sure that we really secure Canada's future in that sense. And that was kind of a slow evolution. I got a taste of it from the institutional advisor side, working on some M&A deals, working with some of Canada's leading innovation centers and startup communities around the world, got closer to it. So when the time came to really, figure out that next chapter for me, it was really about bringing all of my narrative, all of my story all together. The international business, this passionate to support early stage companies to succeed, the ability to help companies to really think global, not just a one market. My closeness to the immigrant community. So it was really all of it, really owning all of it, and all of them coming together and meeting on that bridge to make it happen.
I love the way the bridge motif keeps showing up across your life. Like at this point, like you could almost call it like it's a symbol that is probably just going to go through thread through your life all you do, to be honest.
I've always seen myself as even a bridge between the different cultures. I born and raised in Ghana. I didn't come to Canada till I was, a little bit older. And my family are in Ghana, and I have family here in Canada. And I felt like, part of me has always been have to bridge those cultures and, all of that. And my early stage, when I started entrepreneurship at the age of, 19 back in Ghana, it was actually all about bridging all of it. So yeah, I'm a big on the bridges. So I'm happy that my new company somehow managed to have the bridge in the name. Yeah.
What? You've been bridging stuff for a while.
Bridge builder.
Which is amazing. Like bridges, we need them in the world of today. Just curious, what's the difference in your day right now between when you're in EDC and now that you're in Maple Bridge? Like, which is more exciting, to be honest? Because I think like
which is more exciting? That is a tricky one because it really depends. I was very blessed and truly blessed with the career I had at EDC. I had many exciting time there. I stayed there for as long as I did because the work was really fulfilling, challenging us at the same time, and worked with some of the brightest people I've ever worked with. So that, also served as an incredible foundation for what I am doing now. So I would say they're equally exciting, very, very different. In terms of which one keeps me up at night, the most absolutely Maple Bridge, because it's really a different thing when you are building your own. And for us, we had to build it literally from ground up. There was no, we had to do the digging, the laying the foundation, all of it, really, ourselves. So that was really hard, and a lot of sweat and possibly some tears that went into it, but incredibly fulfilling, especially now that we're up and running. We've seen some really good market response. So I would say both, and I would deem myself quite fortunate to have had a very fulfilling employee career, and now on this new path to be kind of charting my own, direction, and equally fulfilling and exciting. But a lot of more late nights, staying up late, and a lot of headache on the entrepreneurship side. Absolutely.
Oh God. I mean, yeah, I can imagine. So I have one last question for you, which is any tips for immigrant founders looking to raise funds?
So I would say believe in yourself in this on that journey. You've got so much to offer than perhaps the world is probably telling you. So that you really need to know that to begin with, because you are going to encounter a lot of people that are going to say no. Even good people, even good investors, they're going to say no to you where you might think it is the right alignment between their investment thesis and your startup, but they might say no. So at those moments, you need to go back to the belief in yourself why you're doing this in the first place. Because in those dark moments, that is what's going to keep you going. Unfortunately, you're going to get a lot of no's, but sometimes, not always, that is not necessarily indicative of the validity of
Yes.
your business.
Yes.
And, it might
Yes.
be a matter of timing. It might be a matter of not necessarily being aligned with that right investor. So you really need to believe in yourself. I used an analogy recently. The journey of startup building is a marathon race. When you launch, when you get off the gates, it's like that's when the gun goes off and everyone is so excited. There's a lot of energy. You're off the races. You're like, your music is blasting. You got a lot of people around you and you're just pumping. But you'll come to a corner where those voices are down. You might be the only person around there. Those are the moments where people have said a lot of no's to you, and it's really just you and your thoughts and the idea that you're building. And what will make the difference in those moments? You'll be tempted to be like, do I just stop and just sit down, have a chill, and just cry in the corner? Do I switch my music, find something deep? I gotta dig deep in those moments to keep your pace, to really believe that there is something brighter coming. So I can't emphasize enough because I faced it as early stage, investor and as an emerging VC. We face that. So you have to dig in those moments. So that would be number one. Number two is you really need to start a conversation early. The market, unfortunately, is super competitive. Um, Even though our focus is immigrant founders, it takes some time to build, to get to know you, to get to know your story, to get to know your product. It is almost impossible to talk to someone one day and the next day expecting a check. And sometimes some people just don't understand how the fundraising cycle goes. So I think it is absolutely critical as part of your general integration to Canada, really associating with the right group of people who will give you the chance, and
Yeah.
also plugging yourself in to understand what does it really take to raise outside capital. Because that in itself is quite a beast. You need to really understand, what do I need to really raise capital, and you really need to start early. Do not wait till when the bills are piling up to then you
Yeah.
show desperation, and that definitely doesn't sell well. The last, I don't know if it's related to your question, but I'll throw it out there. Not every great business do necessarily need outside capital. And I do stress that, in a few of my conversation, because some businesses are made to be bootstrapped. Some businesses are made to be
Yes.
financed through different levels of or different kinds of debt. Some, businesses are made to really grow organically very, very slowly. So you need to really understand, what am I building? And is it a really good fit? And think about the kind of investor too you're bringing to the table. An angel investor has different expectations than bringing a VC in, regardless of their investment thesis. So there are certainly different nuances to come in when it comes to raising capital. And I think, unfortunately, many founders across all sectors and all stages don't really know all the nuances, and you throw yourself out there and you get smacked in the face unexpectedly by all these pushbacks.
Yeah.
But I will end on a note of optimism. I think the fact that Canada and the world has evolved to a point where we believe immigrants, first of all, face different set of challenges, but there is an inherent and vast untapped potential in them for an entity like Maple Bridge to exist. I think that is really, a positive sign, and we have the ability to bring people with capital, larger capital, to say, hey, this is an opportunity that from a purely an investment standpoint, it hasn't been tapped before, or at least not to the level that we're trying to do. And therefore, let us put real money behind it. And so, we might not be able to invest in every immigrant founder, but if we can create those
Mm-hmm.
champions and if we can create a community around them for them to serve as inspiration for, the other hundreds of immigrant entrepreneurs coming into Canada, I think then our work is really done. So there's certainly, a very positive element to all of it. And I think our existence is a good indication of, the change of tides in terms of seeing that vast
Yeah.
untapped opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you. To be honest, thank you. Like, this has been super inspiring. Thank you for making all the time. Thank you for coming on the pod. I don't think I should say anything else. I don't think I should add anything else.
Well, thank you for
Because
having
I
me.
don't want to I don't want to spoil the moment. I'm like, gosh, like those, like honestly, and that last tip is super important. It's super important. It's on point. Like, because yeah, you can work with everyone, and two, not every business is run different. Unit economics, the markets. So you just ask yourself quickly, like, hey, a fund has certain characteristics, and it needs to match. If it doesn't match, are you just going to take it because you want to say I raised money? But thank
Well,
you.
this has been a very enriching experience, and obviously the conversation has been really wonderful. Thank you so much, first of all, for all you do for the community and for having me on board. Look forward to the next invitation. It's been a
Yeah.
pleasure speaking with
We
you.
have to do that. We have to do that one. Like, we have to do that one. But I'll keep you posted on that. But thank you so much. Like, that was really good. Honestly, I feel like it was really good. I still can't get, there's something Eric said, which is don't dim your light. Like fellow immigrant out there, please don't dim your light. Like, really, just don't dim your light. If you take one thing from this episode, just don't dim your light. Thank you for listening as usual. Please share with your people. If you know someone that finds it useful, please share with them. But please don't dim your light. Like, don't even share, just don't dim your light, to be honest. That's all I'll say. Have a beautiful day.